Train for Your Best Sports Performance members, Joe Toffrey here. This is our very first monthly webcast going out to everyone. So I'm excited to have Josh here, Josh Pauline from West, and or used to play for West now, here to do our first webcast. So today, the topic, he doesn't know what we're going to talk about, he knows nothing about it, but one thing that I've always done throughout the community, I don't do it to his face because I don't like to hype him up too much, but he just got done working out. The one thing I've always said about Josh is he has a chance. And what I mean by that is he has a chance to make it to the level at which he does. We train a lot of athletes, and I don't say that about very many people. Honestly, I've only said it about 2 in the whole area thus far. I wait till you're a little bit older, but there's reasons why I say that about Josh. And so today I kind of want to ask him why he does what he does and why he's all in on that. So Josh, thanks for having us, or thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
First of all, let me just kind of give a little bit about, obviously you're a hockey player, okay? And you played, give us a little bit, just, high school and where you're at now and on your journey here.
Yeah, so last year I graduated high school from Wausau West. I was a player there for the varsity hockey team for my high school career. And right now I'm currently in the United States Hockey League playing for the Lincoln Stars. And it was a little bit of a jump, but it's one that's needed to be made in order to make it to college and hopefully eventually higher leagues than that.
Yeah, right. So the end goal is to make it the NHL.
Yeah, absolutely. Playing professional leagues, whether that be the NHL or somewhere over in Europe or minor league team. I definitely want to play professional eventually. That's the goal. Right.
So the cool thing about Josh that I've realized is is what he does off the ice and on the ice and how he treats his body. I mean, he's all in, and that's something that why I say he has a chance. I don't, no offense, Josh, but I don't think he's the most gifted athlete I've ever seen, right? But what he does, he gives himself a chance because he does everything else right. So, I know you asked me just as much about nutrition, just as much about, about stretching, just as much about leadership, and you've read books that I've recommended stuff. So my question is why do you ask those things, and why do you think it's important?
Well, I definitely think it's important to be all in, just because it translates over, If you're poor in one category, it's going to have effects in other categories. Like, for example, if you have poor nutrition, you're not going to be able to lift as strong or perform at your highest. Or likewise, if you're not a good leader, you're not going to be able to help your teammates and make it through tough times. And I think everything just kind of translates into one another, and it's important to be well-rounded in all the categories.
Yeah, that's great. So how do you think nutrition has helped you? I mean, with your journey so far. I mean, what do you think what changes have you made, I guess, in your diet to try to give you the best chance to be the best you can be?
Yeah, so nutrition is huge. I feel like when you eat better, you just feel better as a person, you're more confident, you'll be able to stay focused for longer. I think it's pretty cliche to say that you should eat your fruits and veggies and your protein and stuff, but it's all, it's important. There's a reason it's said. So I think getting the proper nutrition is huge for recovery, for performing at your best. And I think it's something that should be, taught to younger kids.
Yeah.
I think it's something that should be preached to older players like me, because I know a lot of the people that I play with aren't necessarily super in tune with their nutrition, and I think it's a big thing to be able to eat right, and it translates over to a lot of things.
So you consider it's an advantage, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If you eat right versus somebody who doesn't, mentally he ate like crap, I got a chance.
Sure. I think it gives, an advantage to an athlete, and I think it's important to try and get every advantage you can, and that's an important thing when you're gunning for spots and people are trying to take your job.
So you just said advantage everything you can, and one of the things that I didn't even know this about you until about a year ago, but you were valedictorian at your school, right?
I was.
Right.
Yep.
So what I find fascinating about that is, talk about giving yourself a chance. Like, there's not a lot of full ride scholarships given out in college. I think it's like a 1.1% chance to even get a partial scholarship in any sport, and then there's all kinds of percentages. But it's fascinating to me that I work in college sports, so we gave a lot of scholarships away. But one of the things that coaches always looked at was their GPA, for a lot of reasons. Number one being it shows your dedication, it shows your work ethic, it shows your intelligent level. But what it also does is gives them a benefit financially, because if you get scholarship money, maybe they don't have to give you as much. So when did you start to think that grades were so important, and then why, besides what I just said, like what continues to drive you to keep that high?
Well, I think I kind of realized that grades were important even before I made it to you know, high school hockey and the leagues above that, I think education is first and foremost before sports, just because you know, it kind of gives you a good foundation to be able to communicate with people in your field. It gives you a good foundation to understand what you have to do to be better. Just the simple fact of being a scholar and being smart helps you understand what it takes to get to the next level in athletics, because you know, you have to understand what drives you, where your goals are, and being smart definitely helps take you there.
Right. So I'm going to tell a story real quick about our journey together, and that was what was interesting is, so when we first met, you know, we started working together, and you've been through some injuries and stuff, but in this, growing up in this area, you were always, you know, quote unquote, more of a stud hockey player, right? Like, you were one of the better players. You played at Team Wisconsin, everyone knew that. You left your senior year of high school to go to a team. You know, you were always recognized as one of the best hockey kids, right? And I remember you calling me that first year after being there like 2 months, and you weren't playing a lot, and you were struggling a little bit, and you didn't kind of know what to do, and I told you that it's all perspective, right? And so at the end of the day, not only is it perspective as in it depends on, you know, you're good here, but then you got to a level and you're like, holy crap, these guys are really good, you know? And so just kind of talk about like that journey as in, you know, like, whoa, it was eye-opening a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, it's definitely, you know, it's definitely obvious once you start to get to the higher leagues of whatever sport you're partaking in, that the competition and the skill and everything kind of starts to bottleneck as far as just how good everybody is. And I think it's definitely a transition that when you make, it's overwhelming at first, but I think in the long run it helps you become a better athlete, it helps you become a better person, you know, foremost. And I think that, you know, making the jump is necessary, even though, you know, for younger athletes it can be nerve-wracking, it can be a little bit scary, and, you know, you're going to struggle. I think that's with, like, everything in life, but eventually, you know, it leads to greater things, and I think that's important to always, you know, have that understanding that that's what it leads to.
Right. So what advice would you have, like, for athletes that move on to that level, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, people are way better than me, or I need to, you know, I'm not as good as I thought I was. You know, what made you kind of, okay, I gotta go an extra gear here. Kind of what advice would you give to those athletes that are at that level now?
Yeah, I definitely think it's important, you know, if I would look back on it and kind of give myself some advice, I think it's just important to be patient and continue to work through the process. Or I know it's kind of common to say to trust the process, and that's something that kind of helped me, you know, get through it a little bit. At first it's pretty nerve-wracking, your mind's spinning a little bit, but eventually if you just be patient, and it's important to just continue that work and continue to try and get every advantage you can with rest, nutrition, and you know, and lifting and recovery and all that stuff. I think it's important to keep doing that, and eventually, you know, things are gonna prevail, and you'll be a better person because of it.
So me and you had a great, that's unbelievable. So me and you had a conversation today about sacrifice versus investment. And I think that was a really cool conversation. So just kind of give, you know, what's, you know, my definition would be a sacrifice to be like, well, I'm going to give up, you know, hanging out at this party tonight. I sacrificed the party so I could work out, right? That sounds terrible. But to say I'm going to invest in myself to be able to, you know, work out instead of doing that. So kind of tell me what your mind thinks about, because you know, one thing I prided you on is making right decisions off the, you know, doing some things right, and we're not all perfect by any means, but kind of give your thought on those two things and kind of where you're at now with it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I think investment is, I think that kind of has a positive connotation to it, and then a sacrifice kind of has a negative connotation to it, and for a lot of the people who are trying to make it to the next level, trying to be successful in a higher level in their sport, using the word investment kind of helps change your attitude. It kind of helps give you a positive mindset. And investment is something that it helps you in the long run. It's not necessarily a sacrifice that you're, you know, giving up time with your friends. Obviously you're doing that, but you're investing your time in other things, and I think that's important to recognize. And investing helps you be successful in your endeavors, and, you know, investing, you know, just it helps get your mind in the positive state, and I think it's just a great word to use versus
Awesome. Any other advice you have for any young athletes growing up? Is there anything you would have maybe done a little different, or maybe things that worked for you well that you just would make sure that people that really want to get good, you'd want to make sure they knew?
Yeah, I think one of the big things for me is that's helped me along the way is knowing that I've outworked competition and knowing that I've done more than them. Like Joe said, like I'm not naturally the most gifted athlete. I'm not horrible, but you know, definitely not the top echelon of athletes by any means. But I think doing those extra things and doing that extra work and incorporating nutrition and rest and working with trainers like Joe, it helps give you an advantage to equal the playing field, if not put you ahead of the playing field. And I think that's what that's overlooked oftentimes. But I think outworking your opponents and realizing that sometimes you got to do a little bit more to get ahead is always important. So don't be afraid to go that extra mile.
Yeah, and I think the psychology behind that too, right? That's what I talked to you about when you first got here was, I think you're good enough, but you're like, I need to go an extra gear, right? When you came back, right? You injury last year, and so that now you're like, I want to go. And I think I told you, I said that's because you want psychology is good for you, because you want to. When you get on that ice, you want to know that you've outworked everyone on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it gives you that. When people talk about mental toughness, right? To me, mental toughness is just confidence. Mm-hmm. And confidence comes from you knowing that you're outworked everyone out there. Absolutely. And once you know that, then you play more confident, you play more free. Mm-hmm. You have a little bit of you check your chest out a little bit.
Sure.
So what's interesting about you, Josh, I'm excited because the best thing about having you on today is you haven't made it yet. You've done amazing things in your career, more than I can even dream of, but you're on the journey, right? And so what's cool about it is you're in the middle, like you're dead center in the middle of the journey. Next couple of years will obviously determine a lot, so that's why I've always said you got a chance to make it. So thanks for being on today.
Yeah, thank you.